Good afternoon. Welcome everyone to our last What's Possible Bitesize of the summer. We're going to be taking a break next month, but as ever, delighted to have you with us. You give us 45 minutes, and normally I would say we'll give you actionable innovation that you can take with you into your day job. You'll absolutely be getting some of that today, but also it's a bit of a special session because this is with Sophie Devonshire of the Marketing Society. So this is about you as individuals, and it's your chance to feed back what you're seeing in the world out there, what's changed, what the new pressures are. And the Marketing Society is a network of marketers. So very much this is your opportunity to feed into what's happening for you in your world. And there's no better place to communicate that around the whole profession of marketing. So please do get ready to get involved. I'm going to hand over to Mark, who will, as ever, be your host today. And we won't see you for a little while. So I will say have a fantastic summer. We look forward to seeing you for more What's Possible Bitesize soon.
Thanks, Martin. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Mark Connolly, Client Success Director for the Specialist Works. As Martin said, we have a fantastic guest today, and today is going to be an interactive session with a slight difference in the fact that we really want you to get involved with this session. So there will be some questions that Sophie and I will put to you, and everybody's on mute as always, but there is the question box where you can input your questions, and we will get through as many of those as we can with Sophie. But also we'll go to some feedback and some comments made on your interaction with the session. As always, this session is recorded and will be available in various different places, which will be shared to you afterwards, after the session. And as Martin said, this is our last live event for the summer. But we will be doing some summary sessions of the previous sessions and circulating them around so that the content is still used. So without any further ado, today I'm delighted to introduce Sophie Devonshire. Sophie is an experienced business leader, entrepreneur, marketer, and best-selling author who has worked in and with multinational companies, successful startups, and agencies. An acceleration addict, she is constantly curious about how to speed up success. Her book on leadership, Super Fast Lead at Speed, was shortlisted for Business Book of the Year and got to #1 spot on Amazon. Her highly creative and commercial approach comes from a career which began with classic marketing training at Procter & Gamble and then Coca-Cola. She later moved agency side with Leo Burnett in the Middle East and Interbrand in London. She has personal experience of being a successful entrepreneur, setting up her own award-winning e-commerce business in the middle of a recession, which she sold before running a luxury gifts business. Her most recent role was the CEO of the Caffeine Partnership, a unique business consultancy which helps leaders to work with purpose and pace, where she has worked with impatient business leaders across the world. From the start of July, Sophie became the new CEO of the Marketing Society, a global community of senior marketers whose purpose is to empower brave leaders. So, welcome, Sophie. Thank you very much for taking the time today. Really, really appreciate this. Our first question then is around... give us a brief summary of your journey and why it's led you to taking over the role at the Marketing Society now.
Interesting question. Hi, Mark. First of all, though, thank you for inviting me on to this session. I'm particularly pleased to be here today because I'm looking forward to seeing and hearing from people who are watching this. It's always a bit weird when you can't actually see the people you know are out there. Hello, everybody. But one of my favourite things about working with a marketing audience is I know people tend to be quite vocal and have opinions and thoughts and questions. So this is a brilliant opportunity for me, actually, in these early days of the job, to hear from people. So I'm hoping we're going to get a lot of interaction with people. And I also know Mark and I have got a lot of things to talk about, so I'm looking forward to our discussion. So how did I end up taking on this role? So I'm at, week 3.5, pretty much in the first month of all this. And the good news is I'm not regretting making the decision.
That's good.
But it probably started right at the start of my career. So when I left university, I joined Procter & Gamble up in Newcastle, and fell spectacularly in love straight away. So I joined P&G because at the time we didn't deduplicate their database. Sent letters out to people in the student who were interested in societies and involved in it all. And they sent a few letters and didn't deduplicate. Because I was involved in lots of things at university, got lots of letters and decided to join. But I didn't know until I started the job quite how brilliantly interesting it is to work in marketing. And I fell in love with both the person I met then, who is now my husband, first job, but also totally in love with business, working in teams, and with marketing. So that's probably one of the reasons I took this job. And the other is just it to do with what I've been doing in the last couple of years and what I believe. So I knew Gemma, who's the CEO of the Marketing Society. I knew what I did, but it hadn't occurred to me to apply for the role until a very clever headhunter gave me a call and said, a bit left field, but would you be interested? And actually, I've spent the last couple of years really thinking about business and its role in society. I do think that business is a force for good. It's something that's absolutely critical for all of us. And I think it's quite depressing that, if an 8-year-old goes to see the Lego movie, Lord Business is this evil character and it seems evil. So I love the idea of working with leaders who want to create positive impact and do things with business. And within the Marketing Society, bring together three aspects actually that I really love. One is the sense of what happens when you bring brilliant people together as a network to share ideas and make things happen. The other is a belief in the ability for business and marketing to be a force for good and progress in this world. And just also the fun of working with creative, commercial, exciting and interesting people. So those are the reasons I took the job. And yes, hopefully I will continue to be positive about it, but so far I'm loving it. Well,
congratulations on the job, on the role as well. I think good point to sort of just interject and start asking questions now. So one of the questions that Sophie was keen to know from the audience here, as most of the people joined today are marketers themselves, what would they do in your position? So just put in the chat box, what would you do as the new CEO of the Marketing Society? And we'll pick up on that in a few minutes as the answers start to come in. But before we get to that, because I've just asked the question, you say you're 3.5 weeks into the role. What's it been like starting a new job in lockdown, CEO of an organisation, a global organisation? And I know it's far too early to pin on you what's your vision for the society under your leadership, but what have you found and what have you seen so far that surprised you positively about the Marketing Society?
So your first question was what's it been like to start a new role in lockdown? And yeah, it's very different, obviously. Those onboarding through Zoom and meeting people and building relationships as quickly as possible and getting feedback from people, just doing it virtually. I mean, today I happen to be with our head of events in a studio in Corby, and it's the first time I've met her in real life. And it's amazing to actually, check she's not incredibly tall or, see each other in real life. It's amazing. But actually, starting a job in this way has given quite a lot of focus and some benefits. One of the things that's great about the Marketing Society is the fact we're global. So we have a number of different hubs across the world. And I feel really privileged in that the interactions I've had with our team, with our members, with our board members in all different hubs feels very equal. So I feel like I know the people in Dubai and in New York, as well as I know the people who are based here in London, because this is the way in which we've done it. And it also means I'm then very, very aware of the potential of the global side of interaction. So actually it's been fine. It's given us some focus. I don't want to be only talking to people via Zoom and Teams and Workcasts for the rest of my life. But it's been quite a positive way to start it, actually, all in all. And then your next, did you go straight on from how's it been to what's your vision there? Was that your next question?
It was, yeah, sorry, I lumped 3 questions together. It was disingenuous of me, sorry. The second question was around 30 days in lockdown and finding the, what have you found that's positively surprised you about the Marketing Society?
Oh, well, one of the lovely things actually happened even before I started, which was when it was announced that I was moving into this role, was the plethora of responses from people I knew or people I didn't know very well about how they felt about the Marketing Society. It's an organisation that's been for 60 years, so of course people are going to feel strongly about it. But there's so much goodwill out there from people who talk about their desire to give back to the industry and the seriousness and the importance of it all. So actually, the positive surprise has been how many incredible people are, fully supportive of it, and that plays into, we've got people on our boards across the world. We've got marketing fellows who are actively involved in the society, but just so many other people who've just said, this is a great organisation and what more can I do to help? And also people who are prepared to talk about the difficulties that there is for any network and for anybody in marketing right now. So I think the willingness of people to give back and get involved feels really positive.
Fantastic. I mean, so I know I want to sort of link that then with your book, Super Fast Lead at Speed. Can you give everybody a summary of what the key takeaways are from that book and how everybody listening today can use those to help with their decision, with their leadership style at whatever level they're at in their organization?
Thank you for the plug for the book. And you want me to give a summary super fast. It's quite a long book. It's going to take a few minutes for us to talk about that. I mean, the reason I wrote the book was because I do think it's incredibly hard for everybody. It has been incredibly hard for everybody over the last few years to get the pace right in leadership, business generally. And great leaders are pace setters. They understand how to vary the pace. We have to move incredibly fast, but we also have to make sure we're building in the pauses, we're slowing down to think, to create. And the interesting thing about the last few months has, of course, been how incredibly pertinent the research I did for the book feels for what we've just been through. So for the book, I spoke to 100 different leaders in different organisations just to get a sense of what people had been doing to innovate, create, be entrepreneurs, be successful in business. And there are a number of themes that came out that are probably quite useful shortcuts if you are trying to navigate things at the right pace. And they include the overwhelming need to be exceptionally brilliant at human understanding in a world which is where the pace is so driven by technological understanding. So we do all need to really make sure we know tech shortcuts will help us with our marketing decisions, with our lives, with making things happen, and technological understanding is critical. But great leaders who are operating in a super fast world have exceptional empathy and work on it and work on their human understanding, which of course is very, very relevant for marketing. That ability to know your audience so you can anticipate what they need, but also to know your team and the people you need to influence, and to know yourself. So understanding how you're going to navigate through quite challenging, bonkers, super fast, crazy, pressured times. A lot of the fantastic leaders I spoke to, that had been a moment in their journey where they made all the difference. They took some time to think about how they worked, and they were able to do that. So that human understanding, that empathy is critical. There is also an overwhelmitis for everybody in the world right now. There is so many things happening. We're in an always-on culture. So the ability to actually be an editor and focus, prioritize, make choices at speed, really pare things down in a very, very complicated and confusing world, to curate and decide is also very, very important, and particularly important right now. So the need for empathy, the need to edit, and ultimately, and we've definitely seen this in 2020, the need to work out how things are so exhausting and there's so much impatience out there and we need to move so fast, how we manage our energy and the energy of our teams to get through all this. So some of those, I think, feel dangerously, awfully important right now.
Yeah, no, and I want to unpick some of those, actually. I also just want to make sure everybody, please keep the questions coming through, and we will get through as many as we can with Sophie. So to unpick two things straight away in there, you were talking about human empathy and understanding yourself, and by definition, I'm extending that to know what your skills are, but not you personally, but you as a marketeer, but also what your limitations are. And the reason I raised that is because you and I were discussing a couple of days ago a post that was on LinkedIn, whereby it said to be a successful marketeer, you need to know about marketing, e-commerce, martech, globalization, personalization, and there was a massive, great big long list. And compared to how marketers were when I started out in the business several decades ago, admittedly, it seems to me that the need for the requirements of marketeers now has gone off the chart in terms of the discipline, logic and knowledge and experience that they're having to have to be able to just stand to do their job. What's your interpretation on that?
Yeah, I think this is, you're absolutely right. This is what makes this a particularly challenging time for marketers. On the one hand, the amount of tools, insight, potential that's out there is positive. We can all do so much more, be more skilled, find different ways to connect and create. On the other, just trying to sort through and make decisions is incredibly overwhelming, and it's very, very tricky. And this, I think, is one of the areas where it's important for us to remember that we're not alone. I do think lots of people are sitting in their bedrooms or in their home offices trying to work out what the hell to do next.
Yeah.
And under-resourced. So I think that sense of working out where there are some shortcuts potentially to learn from others as well. So, the amount of insight, information, inspiration that's out there to help marketers at the moment is amazing, but, impossible not to look at. So again, and, I know I'm probably biased because I'm talking about it from a society viewpoint, but not just us. Who are the people that you can talk to who will give you the curated version of what will help? Who's on your team, not just internally, because frankly, everyone's struggling with resource in their teams to have the right people internally, but who are the experts, who are the accelerators for you in order to use all that amazing data, knowledge, help that's out there to get you faster to being able to make some decisions. So yeah, I think that navigating through, also building up your team, which isn't just your internal team, but your personal boardroom, if you like, of experts and accelerators is one way to get through it all. But yeah, and again, just recognizing that we're not alone. And this is one of the things I'm hearing when people come together and talk about the experience we're going through. For marketers to share their experience and share what they're doing is such a great accelerator for getting you to business, and reassuring because you also understand the greater context of it all.
Great. Well, that's an unprompted segue into a great question, actually, which is to ask the viewers right now, just to put in the chat box, what has changed and what's been new for them in the last few months in their role in marketing. And I'd like to get that coming through. So if you could put what's changed to your role, we can start sort of talking to Sophie, around this. The second thing I wanted just to pick up on that answer that you gave around the role of marketing was you talked about short term and long term, and I think what I've certainly seen with the clients that I'm talking to on a daily basis, there is because in a lot of cases, not all cases, some clients have done exceptionally well during COVID. Direct to consumers, supermarket brands, etc., have seen revenues and go off this chart. But for most clients, most advertisers, there was a period of downtime, lack of consumer income, and therefore there is now seems to be a massive board pressure on short-termism conversion versus long-term brand building. What would you say to those? What would you say to that board as a marketeer about the dangers of looking at just short-termism versus long-term branding?
This goes back to one of the perennial challenges for marketeers inside organizations, which is to make sure that it's not just your outside audience that you're understanding and connecting with, but being able to tell the right stories, speak the right language in the boardroom, and with your broader commercial team. The very best marketers have always had that balance of being able to be both creative and commercial, but also collaborative and to be able to help others understand what they instinctively understand as well. And the pressure of the need to operate with a two-pace race. We all right now need to survive, and we absolutely have to. We've got to survive today, but we aren't responsible and smart if we don't work out what else we can do to thrive in the long term. And it's a responsibility for marketers to make sure that they can balance those two things at the same time. And the only way in which they can do that is by storytelling internally and bringing together the logic, the rationale, using the right lexicon and language. I've heard some really interesting things about how marketing leaders are even just using slightly different language at the moment. We've got a Marketing Society event tomorrow where we're talking about the role of the CMO. And one of our board members from one of our other hubs was talking about how she's using the words investment rather than spend to remind everybody else of the need to build for the long term, and being brave and courageous enough to not just respond to what understandably everyone's going through. This is a panicked time, and we have got to move fast, and we cannot forget that the delivery of commercial results is going to be important, because we don't exist tomorrow. There's no point building something amazing. But one of the things when I was researching Superfast that we talked a lot about, I spent a bit of time with some engineers understanding speed. So some car engineers and some scientists, and talking to them about the physics of speed. And they always said to me, don't use the word speed, Sophie, because actually it's not as sexy as using the word velocity. So velocity technically is speed in a given direction. And if you are leading, if you are a strong marketeer, set that direction, and you can make sure that you're moving fast to hit what needs to happen in the short term, but that you're making sure that you're moving in terms of the long-term direction with velocity.
The power of language has something which is personally really permeated through all of these What's Possible sessions that we've done. Last week alone, we had Siffers Williams talking about Black Lives Matter and the importance of language and the crossover with marketing. So white lists and blacklists, we need to change the language around that. But the language about velocity and speed, investment and spend is also, in the context of what we're talking about today, is equally crucial to get that buy-in at board level. And I think, so we've got a question come through, which I want to link through to something you've just said a second ago, which was that the question I asked was, what do marketeers need to do today and right now? And you said, find their trusted advisors. Now, may have a vested interest in promoting the Marketing Society. It could be argued that I would have a vested interest in promoting media agencies. So I'm going to take a question from somebody that sits outside of this. But I mean, I think joking aside, your point is really very clear, which is that very few marketers can be skilled in absolutely every discipline which they're now expected to do. And finding those trusted advisors, be them organizations and societies, be them paid advisors, be them consultants, be they advertising agencies, it's important to have that network to make the skill. Anyway, getting to the question. So Ron asked the question, given your experience of media agencies roles and now at the Marketing Society, what do you think traditional media planning and buying companies do well or could do better these days?
Well, hi, Ron. I would say my experience of media agencies and Marketing Society has been limited. Bear in mind, everybody listening, I am still in month 1. So what I'm doing at the moment is very much asking the question of everybody, what more can we do? How can we work together? Jeffrey Immelt from GE always talks about the soak, which is the moment when leaders sort of soak up all the opinions and decisions, opinions and perspectives before they make big decisions. So I am talking to a lot of media agencies and great people around that at the moment, but we are still too early for me to have a perspective on that. But what do I think they could be doing? It's the same advice for anybody who is ambitious, smart, and wants to make a difference. And that is to seize this moment now to work out what's possible. And also to work out where the shortcuts are for you in terms of getting to where you need to be. And those shortcuts are often things that take a little bit more time and should take a bit more time to focus on, including building exceptional relationships with your network team of trusted advisors and, of course, your clients. And it goes back to this point about human understanding. The context of what everybody's going through needs to be understood by the media agencies, both in terms of the individuals, but also what's happening at a more macro level. So again, it's very, very difficult. You have to know about what's happening right now and what's going to happen in the future. But all of us are naturally trained and brought up to just look at what's happened in the past. But the pattern recognition side of things just isn't working right now. So we can't, draw on our experience of, 20 years ago, what we did then or whatever it is. We have to set ourselves up to be ready to respond fast, to be structured for speed without rushing and being foolish about it, still slowing down to think, but structuring for speed and responsiveness, because we've no idea what's going to happen next. And we've had this twice now. We've had, unexpected things like Brexit hitting, COVID, whatever. We've no idea what's going to happen in 2021. We were talking yesterday with a panel of postponement of the Olympics to 2021. There is still no guarantee that the Olympics will take place in 2021. We don't know what's going to happen. All we can control is how we work and the foundations of our relationships, our structures, our systems, our processes, so that we are ready to respond. And the same is absolutely true of media agencies. What are the ways in which we're all understanding and built to learn quickly about changes, to see the opportunities, and to keep iterating and evolving rather than slowly moving in a certain direction based on the past.
I think it's really interesting that you say that marketing is traditionally based on past behaviors and how you use those moving forward. I think one of the things that we observed working closely with all of our clients over the last 4 or 5 months has been that as soon as lockdown happened on March 28th, there seemed to be a unanimous sort of holy crap, don't really know what to do now. I'm not saying that through a naive, stupid point of view. It was like, this is unprecedented. We've never had shop shut, services locked down, consumers banned from leaving their houses ever before. And what we saw was a period of 2 to 3 weeks. It was a very quiet period because everybody was trying to work out what to do. Then there was an element of, well, we should probably start doing this. And then in the last few weeks, it's really sort of started ramping up, and people are now starting to look, our marketing partners are looking more at H2, which, let's just not forget, we've got to get through the next 6 months before we get to 21. God knows what that's going to throw at us. But so there was this learning curve. And the second part of that comment, which will turn into a question, is that because this is such a weird blip, the marketers and CMOs that we're talking to right now, their boards don't know what next year's targets or next year looks like, because you always have a CAGR growth on last year. And this year being such an anomaly, either for D2C brands that have done so well that it's be very difficult to replicate that next year, or for our brands that have, through no fault of their own, had to shut their organizations and then stack up on the other side. So my question out of that is, what do you think that marketers could do to be more forward-looking and proactive as we come out of the current lockdown? Let's obviously talk about another one. But as we come out of this lockdown, what should marketers be really focusing on to make sure that they can maximize all the elements of marketing, of consumer relations, sales, and development?
I mean, I think we start with this point of being realistic about where everybody is right now. I'm just thinking about what you talked about there, Mark, about what the experience is that we've all been through. And at the start of it, it was like a sprint. You know, everybody, all hands to deck. It's actually quite purposeful for a lot of people. There was an energy there around the, right, let's pivot, let's respond, how quickly can we get things done? There was almost some excitement in moving to that stage. And then we're getting into this 2.0 part of our response to it. We've all gone, oh, actually, that sprint is fundamentally a marathon, and we need to be making decisions and keeping going like this without having any idea where the end point of this race actually is. I think that's some of the best marketing leaders. One of their skills has been their ability to be brave and fast about making decisions with no certainty. You know, that ability to bring together the magic and logic, the science and the instinct to make a call on things has been something that has always helped the best marketers stand out. And I think now more than ever, building on that strength and that character trait of being courageous about making decisions, without, of course, being the sort of people who make decisions without bringing in enough input. But I think there's a reinvention going on for lots of people in terms of the way in which they are responding to making those decisions. With a lot of the work I've been doing the last few years and talking to people about, there are huge lessons most bigger organizations have taken from the experience of startups and entrepreneurs. And although there's sometimes a bit of a fetishization of startups, you know, there is nothing like launching your own business and not having a clue what's happening next. And the skills that gives you in terms of remaining optimistic, but also very quickly making sure you can bring in the points of view and the data you need, and still high velocity decisions to move things forward. I think that's important. I think the other side of that is just that ability to test and learn, iterate and evolve, be agile, which is an overused word, but say, what can we do to find out more? Let's not wait to see what happens. Let's do something that will allow us to keep listening and learning. And those type of skills, I think, are proving really, really valuable for those people who are, you know, for all of us who are slightly going, oh, we have no idea what's going on. You know, what can we do to test and learn? How can we try something? How can we set ourselves up to be able to respond in a way that allows us to keep building together?
Yeah. So I want to pick up, there's a couple of questions that have come through linked to brave leaders. So I want to start it with a question of mine, and then I'll ask the two questions that have come through. The Marketing Society's purpose is to empower brave leaders. How do you interpret that? What is a brave leader?
It's a fascinating conversation, this, because when you start talking to people about what bravery means to them, the stories that come out and the perspectives from people has been really interesting for me. And it's a question I've been asking lots of our members, and also, we'd love to hear from anybody listening. But bravery for me breaks down into a couple of aspects. Fundamentally, though, if you want to create change, or if you want to make things happen, if you want to accelerate things, then that's going to ensure that you're in a position which isn't that comfortable. Anybody who's a change maker, anyone who's a pace setter inside an organisation will find themselves in situations where they therefore have to be brave. They have to have the personality trait we talk about, which is courage, the stomach to make decisions when actually you're zagging when others are zigging, the confidence to do something which is different. And one of our ex-board members for the Marketing Society, Mitch Oliver, talks about bravery for her means not being boring. It is doing something different. But it's also doing something that requires you to feel uncomfortable about it. And so for me, it remains a really important and interesting aspect of leadership for us to explore, which is critical for leaders. I'm in the studio here today because we're just about to do our annual awards ceremony, the Marketing Society's Brave Awards. Second year, it's been branded as Brave Awards. 35th year, I think we've done the ceremony. And so I've been thinking a lot about the stories that have come out from our nominees. Incredible stories of leadership. And leadership is, for me, remains that mix of bravery, and the synonyms for it are courage and audacity. The willingness to take bold risks. But there's no point in any of us being brave about the decisions we make in business or what we do in life. The moral and psychological brave decisions that I think a lot of people are making about social issues right now. No point being brave unless you're brilliant too. But if you've got that combination of those two things, if you're smart enough and you've got the head power and to make good decisions, and you're brave enough to make sure that they make them happen, then that's where business gets exciting. That's where incredible, creative, category-defying stories happen. So trying to seek that out and encourage that and help people, because it's very hard to be brave right now. When we're all sort of, a lot of us have got the fear, and fear shuts down creativity hugely. I mean, all the neuroscience talks about that. So when people are feeling fearful and panicked, it's harder for them to be creative, but it's also harder for them to be courageous. So it feels really, really important for us to be highlighting the stories and helping the people who are brave leaders. And when I talk about leaders, I don't necessarily just mean their titles and their seniority. I mean people who are making a choice about what they're doing, who are making a difference at work, and who are making an impact in the world.
Which fantastic segue. So Hannah asks two questions. How can you be brave marketer at a junior or mid-level? And at a more senior level, how can you empower your team to be brave?
Well, there are lots of stories of people who have made an enormous difference in their business by being brave, by being smart about making things happen at a junior level. And this is why I think making a personal choice about what impact you want to have, how much you want to achieve relatively early on in your career can make all the difference. So do you just want to survive and things, make a salary and make every day at work just about okay? Or do you want to actually lead a life that you feel proud of? And the same thing is true whether you're a junior or senior marketer. To be brave, you have to know what you want to achieve. Brave, we talk about brave and being courageous is overcoming fear, but then you can be foolhardy about that. Understanding what impact your decisions will be and why it's important to be brave, and connecting. It's difficult to talk about this without sounding cheesy, and I don't want to, but connecting with what you're like as a human, what you believe in. Bold and brave people stand up for what they believe in. They make things happen. They connect people together, and they create stories that make them feel good, that make them feel good, but also make other people look good, and helps the organisation create something that's bolder and bigger in the end. But they can't do it alone. Come back to what we talked about at the start of this. You sometimes get a situation where, I talk to people after speaking about superfast and leadership, or a number of people I work with at a junior level who take so much pressure on themselves to think it's all about me, and I have to make sure that I'm a perfect person and I have to know everything, and you just can't. You have to make choices about where you get your information from. You have to make choices about what you do, and it's easier to be brave when you are focused on what you're good at, about who's helping you, and you've got that overall thinking about how it all fits within the desire to be brilliant as well. That's very long answer, Hannah.
It was a passionate answer, and I think these last two questions will sort of touch on that passion as well. So Dominic asked a question and then counters the question on his second question. So before COVID, high street retail was declining. Do you think that the marketing landscape will accelerate more to online? And do you envisage this being the brave decision for marketers to take? Or counter to that, his second question is, will the brave decision be to remain available in stores anyway?
Well, this is a perfect example of the fact that courage is going to be needed one way or another. And it would be foolhardy of me to say that I can give an expert perspective on this, looking at every single retailer out there. But the brave and brilliant people who are out there who are making the decisions do have to make decisions. The biggest speed bump in any organisation, the biggest risk you can have is to do nothing. So we see over and over again in retail, in brands, in marketing, the courage of people to be bold, to stand out, to go against the grain. And there will be some retailers who quite understandably make a brave decision about the future, ignoring the fact that the past was completely different. So I think it's a really important question to be asking at the moment. And the worst thing you can do is to say, well, actually, I'm going to do nothing about this. I'm not going to make a decision. Because I think those are the ones at the moment, businesses at the moment who do nothing, say nothing, stand for nothing, are going to get run over. They're going to be in the middle of the road and they will lose out. So trying to take courageous, audacious decisions right now will get you somewhere, but there is always the risk as well, and that's why you have to be brave.
So final question then, which there's quite a few more in the inbox, but unfortunately we've run out of time, so thank you for everybody for asking all the questions. But my final question then is, for the marketers watching this right now, what advice would you give them for the next, to take away from this session, on how they need to focus in the short term for the next few months as we come out of furlough, lockdown, retail stores being closed? What advice have you got to those marketers listening right now?
Before I say that, just because I know there's a couple of questions coming through, if anybody has anything that they want to ask or to continue this discussion, please do get in contact with me separately, because I'm relentlessly social and I can talk on Twitter or Instagram or LinkedIn, and this is such an interesting conversation, so I would like to carry on if you've got any questions.
Thank you.
So what advice now? This is where we go back to the perils of a super fast world. We are all utterly exhausted. All our teams are utterly exhausted right now. The energy we've had to process in terms of huge change, learning new things, moving fast, resilient through fear, there is a real energy problem right now. And in a super fast world, when everything's moving too fast, you get a situation where everyone goes, oh, I'm just so busy, I don't have time to think. So never, ever, ever underestimating the power of a pause and building in short, sharp pauses to make sure you're thinking, also recharge a little bit. I think as much as we can right now, whatever you're working on, taking time to make sure you're resetting your energy is really important, because without energy, nothing happens. You can't start a fire, you can't run a car, and you certainly can't take businesses and take your organization, take your marketing plan and take your life and reset it, recharge it and build back better. You can't have the creativity you need or the resilience you need without energy. So the number one piece of advice would be to pause to think and pause to recharge you and your team and work out what ways you can get the sparks back in order for us to go into whatever happens next with the energy and the optimism and the mindset that allows us to do amazing things.
Well, thank you for that. I couldn't have teed that up better, because I'm going to have to draw it to a close now, because I commit to 45 minutes and I make sure everybody has their day. But this was our last What's Possible Bite-sized session, as we go away and pause and think and just develop and take some time, and then we'll be back in a few weeks time, I think. But for that last session, I couldn't have asked for a better session. So Sophie, CEO of the Marketing Society, thank you so much indeed for your honesty and your passion today. And all of your contact detail will be shared with the follow-up on this email. And I'll do the plug for you. The book's available on Amazon. It's available in good bookshops, and a membership of the Marketing Society is easily done online, because I did it myself yesterday. So thank you very much, Sophie. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks, everybody.